This is Mark Ludwig from the Allegan Conservation District, and I run something we do there called the Flushing Bar Project. And this is the Generation 2 flushing bars that we're putting out this year. Flushing bar is a simple tool. See the actual bar part down here that drags some chains through forage, crops like hay, in order to scare up birds and other wildlife. And that's a drop chain you see going down. We actually have a little double chain assembly there that where we splice a little extra chain together and actually use the old just cut welds and weld them back together. We've also got a folding joint in the middle here. You see that allows the bar to be folded in half when you're going down the road, so that it's not so tall and interferes with wires and whatnot. Most of this basic part we actually stole from Ducks Unlimited Canada. I added this, which is a secondary pivot. You see that kind of golden pin sticking up there. That's on top of a Heim joint, which is a kind of ball joint you have on the 3-point hitches of tractors. And this allows the bar to be able to move a little bit. And you can see one of the downsides, it isn't really stable laying down like that, especially now that I've added these springs to it to try to keep it centered a little better. But this allows the bar to run into something and not bend. There is an awful lot of leverage on that thing. The bar is almost 10 feet long, so it really has an awful lot of force. There's also an awful lot of weight. In our case, these are built on quick attach plates so they can quickly be snapped onto front end loaders. A lot of our farmers run a front end loader on their tractor. We actually went to a heavier, thicker plate for more counterweight. And you can see this extra leg on this side we added was important as well, just to really counterbalance that thing. It was really pretty unstable. A little bit scary to hook up on our first version where we didn't have that second leg. This is the primary, it's what I would call the mast carrier. You see it's in the shape of an L, where the bar is actually attached separately from the mast. And the mast, you see here, comes up. There's a spreader on top. It puts two chains out. Actually, I'll kind of pivot around here. Be a little easier to see, I think. You can see the two chains attach and keep the bar more or less centered if you're on flat ground, but of course a lot of our guys are on rolling ground. So that was what we added the spring for, to add a little more force to try to keep that bar centered. I chose to just go ahead and, this was kind of design of opportunity, rather than try to add a place to attach the springs back here on this side of the ball joint, which is maybe where we end up. I went ahead and just stuck a longer bolt in there, put a couple of spacers in to keep the springs equidistant. The springs themselves just hook right onto the bar, then they carry onto some chain, and then the chain goes back to the opposite leg, and we've got a little chain catcher. I've been building these with pretty, basic fabrication tools, so I don't really have a milling machine to cut nice grooves in, so I just take some nice little pieces of angle iron like that, and by welding them close together I got a place to catch chain. The center of the chains you see comes up to a compression spring. We use a type of spring they have for electric fencing, high tensile electric fencing. And what this is to do is provide a little bit of dampening to this mast. The mast is actually sitting on a piece of steel like so. That's inside there and welded on like you wouldn't believe. But it does still allow the mast to kind of move quite a bit. And you can see when that mast gets moving, kind of gets that chain moving. So part of what we did on some of our later designs last year and this year was to add this spring here to dampen it. What you're not seeing, because we're kind of running out of light today to make movies, so we were a little rushed, but There will also be a turnbuckle in here, right about here, which will allow us to apply force without having to try to just do it down here, because you really just can't put enough torque on the, yeah, you can't pull that chain hard enough to get it down on the notch. At least I couldn't. I suppose if you're a real brawny fellow, you might be able to do it. It was pretty difficult actually to also put tension on these springs, but by standing up the bar and using the leverage of the bar, you could turn it back and forth a little bit, and you could get some tension on those springs. I also did one other thing. It's a little hard to see, but this is an implement lift pin. You see that's got the little clip pin on top of it. There's also a shaft collar I stuck in there just to act as a bushing and maybe hold that down a little more. You know, I either still am kind of thinking about some way to pull that bar down so it rests comfortably on there, or you know, maybe the springs aren't what we need. Maybe we need some other way to keep that bar from slipping, some kind of little brake on there, or something. Anyway, as you are watching this on YouTube, you'll also see, hopefully you will proceed to our website, www.theflushingbarproject.net. You can also just Google Flushing Bars, and you'll get my project and drinking establishments in the greater New York City area. But you know, we'd love to have consultation with equipment manufacturers. We'd love to talk to you about other things you do to help get wildlife out of your ways and your haylands. And certainly other flushing bars that are being built out there, I'd love to hear about and hope to talk about a little more. I've got a young fellow I've been corresponding with who's building one out of wood, and I've certainly seen things like that on the internet. Also, for those of you who are longtime farmers, I have found a picture of a Ferguson, as in Henry Ferguson, 3-point hitch guy, factory-made flushing bar. And if anybody has any knowledge of that, or knows somebody I should talk to about Ferguson equipment who might be able to help me track that down, I would love to talk to you. Anyway, at our Flushing Bar Project website, you'll also find some detail sheets I'm writing up with just some sketches and drawings, materials list it takes to build one. How long does it take to build? It's a great question. We're building with kind of primitive or not terribly sophisticated tools here, and I'm not a great fabricator. I don't do this full time. It's taking me, I think, all of 2 solid days of puttering around out in the shop per bar. I think in a factory setting, I think you could truck right along on this if you were a small implement builder. And really anybody in a factory setting, man, this thing is pretty simple, especially, gosh, any of you who are out there already building that. That's the toughest part right there, that quick attach plate. Anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up. This is Mark Ludwig for the Allegan Conservation District and the Flushing Bar Project.